I should really figure this out. Episode 247, I think, maybe 248. I don't know. With Mr. Edmundo Mireles, who was involved in the biggest shootout in FBI history, and his book FBI Miami Firefight, available on Kindle. But I'm going to dock points because it's not on Audible. So I always scold the author when the book isn't on Audible because I'm too ADD. But I can get my phone to... Everyone that's listening to this podcast is tearing their hair out because I say this every time. When it's on Kindle, you can get Kindle to read it to you for everybody listening, for ADD people like me. You can get the voice to read it to you. But Audible's the way to go. So I dock points, Mr. Mireles. I'm docking points. So you're at an A-. But before I start talking like an idiot, how about you introduce yourself, sir?
Sure, Thomas. Ed Mireles, retired FBI agent, joined up in 1979 out of the Washington field office, and I retired in 2004 out of Quantico, Virginia, out of the training academy. Had a great career, to almost 25 complete years. Then after that, went on to work as with a defense contractor in Alexandria, and then ended up with a defense contractor in Iraq for about 4 years, and then with the State Department in Mexico City, and then Belize, Central America. But it's been a good run. My career in the FBI was a great experience, great adventures.
Yeah, and I was going to say, early on, and you talked about Sofia, Bulgaria.
That's correct. I forgot about that part of my life. I was in the Marine security program, which the Marine security battalions they run security for U.S. embassies abroad. And I happened to be lucky enough to be selected for that program. I got selected in 1972. And I went through the training program, and they have a high washout rate. It's about a 40% dropout rate, for various reasons. You can't pass security, or you can't pass a test, or what have you. But I managed to squeeze my way through the training, and through the security backgrounds, and I ended up in Sofia, Bulgaria, which was an absolute incredible experience. Talk about people say, hey, the Iron Curtain, the communist this and socialism. Guys, I got to tell you, I lived there for a year. It was terrible. Yeah, absolutely terrible. Yeah. I had it good. I was an American with protection, living at the embassy, but the people there, it was sad. It was like 1984, dystopia. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the truth. And I was going to, because one thing I always bring up is this, this podcast is unapologetically patriotic, and I take a chance to crap on socialism and communism every chance I get. One of my friends, though, Ivan Georgiev, Georgiev. I've known him for about 9 years now. He's one of those guys that you just want to hate because he's tall and handsome and smart. He's 6'4" and he looks like the Terminator.
There are so few of us left.
Touche. All right. You've got it. All right. Okay. I haven't been taken off guard on this podcast. You just took me up 248 episodes in. You just sweat my feet. All right. Okay.
No, but you know what, though? Your friend Gorgie?
Ivan Georgiev.
Yeah, Ivan, he's absolutely right. I lived there a year, and the people, I had the best of all worlds, and I was depressed. Yeah. You looked at the people. Everybody was dressed in drab clothing. Everybody had to work. There's no free ride. People talk about, socialism. Those people had no free ride. Yeah. If you did not work, you did not eat. Okay, and that was brought home one day when I was walking from. We had gone to an event at the British Embassy with the British Marines that were guarding the British Embassy. That's a nice way of saying we went out and got shit-faced with the British Marines, But we were walking back. A couple of Marine buddies of mine were walking back, and I was stunned when I saw what was going on, because it had snowed in the day before and that same day, and I was looking at the plazas and the big streets, the main streets in downtown, and I saw dump trucks, being moved forward a few feet, and then people were shoveling snow off the street onto the truck. And I said, "Oh my God!" I said,
shit.
"Don't they even have a tractor or a plow or something?" And you know what? That was just the beginning of my shock. Do you know who was shoveling the snow?
Yeah.
60, 70-year-old women were shoveling that snow into the truck. They were wearing, they were trying to stay as warm as possible. Some were wearing boots, some were wearing shoes and when stockings and babushkas and stuff. And I was stunned. My teeth just about fell out of my mouth when I saw these senior ladies shoveling snow off the boulevards in downtown Sofia. And I asked some of the Bulgarian employees at the embassy. They said, "Hey, I mean, these people have to work. Nobody gets a free ride."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, my God, that's Social Security for these people.
Yeah.
There was Social Security age. There were 60, 70-year-olds, and that was their reward for a long life of being a Bulgarian citizen. You got to get up at midnight and shovel snow in the sub-zero weather, or else you don't eat, or else you don't get heat to your house. Yeah. Because that's another thing I found out. In Bulgaria, they controlled the heat was generated at a factory. It was all radiators.
Yeah.
It was all radiator heat in the buildings. So, the hot water was controlled by the government. So they could turn the heat on or they could turn the heat off.
Yeah.
Any way you want to play it.
Yeah.
And of course, if you don't work, you don't eat, so, and if you want to play tough, they'll cut your heat off.
No, yeah.
It was shocking,
Yeah.
So, and at the time I was like 19, 20 years old, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well,
incredible.
Well, I was going to say, and don't eat. That's the nice end of it. If you really don't want to work, they'll put you against the wall, which 100 million, 1917 to 2017, 100 million dead from socialism and communism. But I met Ivan, I was 20, about to turn 21. I was here in Ocean City, Maryland, in between summers at UGA, University of Georgia, and I met Ivan up here on like a work exchange program where they would come over from Europe, all these Eastern European guys, work the most insane shifts ever. Just they would work 13, 14-hour shifts, and then they'd do another one next door, but they'd save up money because the exchange rate they could pay for a whole year of college.
Right.
And I met Ivan. And I was like, who is this? Like 6'4". I mean, you could sharpen a machete on his jawbone. He looked like the Terminator. And I was like, this guy's my new friend. Cause like I worked out at the time and it was he and I was like, there's my new workout buddy. But I met Ivan, born and raised till he was 21, Sofia, Bulgaria. And he's I remember meeting him, and he really solidified like all of my views in the world. Cause he was just like, you have it so good here. He'd be like, people that don't work, they just get free things. And that was his observation.
That is the, I don't know what word to put on it, Thomas. That is the true gift that Americans give themselves. Okay. If you're a lazy, no good person, okay, you get taken care of. If you don't choose not to work, someone's going to take care of you. Yeah. But another thing that I forgot to mention is you'll find this pretty shocking. We used to get the old coffee cans. The 1-quart coffee cans with the old Folgers cans. With the plastic lid on top. You would open the top. Take the top off, and then the plastic lid would keep the coffee. From hardening or whatever. Keep it fresh. And then we would use like bottles of Clorox. The plastic bottles of Clorox, or the 2-ounce, 2-liter bottles of soda and stuff like that. Anything with a screw cap on there. And, I mean, I wasn't anything special. I was just another poor kid out of South Texas, joined the Marine Corps. I mean, I was going to get drafted, so I preempted the draft, But I mean, I wasn't anything special. I mean, my dad was just a worker. I mean, my mom stayed at home, so I mean, we weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination. But what I saw in Bulgaria, the trash that we dumped it outside of the embassy in a bin, and we had a camera because for security purposes, you don't want somebody putting an IED in a trash can.
Sure,
that's before IEDs were cool. That's back in '72.
Hipster IEDs before it was cool.
So, but we had cameras watching the trash can. And I would see people. I mean, I'd be on duty and I'd see people, going through the bins. And the first time I saw it, I ran down. I thought somebody was doing something nefarious.
Put a grenade in there,
I ran down. I mean, I had my hand on my gun, and I opened the door and I said, I forget. I said something in Bulgarian like "What? Kako?" I think what's going on or what? And the people were startled. They were like, "Oh no!" And they were taking those bottles. They were taking those cans with lids on them, Clorox bottles with screw tops. And I looked at them, and I said, it instantly hit me. And I said, oh my God, I said, molia, was like, okay, it's like, so they went their way. And then the next day I talked to the other Marines, and I talked to some of the Bulgarian staff people that spoke English. They said, yeah, Ed, we can't get these types of products here. Anything with a lid on it is gold.
Yeah.
Because you can store stuff. You can keep stuff fresh. You can keep stuff from getting spoiled or rained on or whatever. And that shocked me. I said, why would anybody use a Clorox bottle? I mean, that could be poisonous. I mean, unless you're transporting water. I mean, chlorine and water go together. But and then there's screw jars for like olives or something like that. Everything was a commodity there.
Yeah.
And these people here in the States, America is so bad.
It's a third world country,
dude. I mean, if you ever lived in the real Soviet bloc, back when it was the Iron Curtain, I mean, that was harsh, man. I mean, they were taking our trash because it was golden to them, So I mean, there's just so many stories. I went to there was one department store or grocery, like a Publix or I don't know what do you have up in Maryland? Safeways or
Safeway, Food Line, Kroger, Publix.
I went to the one store that was their equivalent of a Food Line or whatever it was, and I was walking around and I saw all these typical gigantic refrigerator areas where you would typically see meat and cheese and fish and other types of produce. And the only thing I saw was a crowd of people standing around these bins. And again, being the naive, squirrely Texas kid, I'm thinking, what's going on here? And they said, oh, they're waiting. I said, yeah, but there's nothing in the bins. They're all empty. And they said, yeah. I said, they're waiting. I said, they're waiting for what? They're waiting to see if today is the day that a shipment of meat will come in.
Good Lord.
Or if today is the day that they get a shipment of fish, or if today is the day that they get a shipment of pork or ham. And I said, are you kidding me? So they come in and whenever the store opens and they hang out for God knows what, 8 hours. And they said, yeah, I mean, that's the way it is. Yeah. And I was shocked again, shock upon shock upon shock. So I walked around this quote unquote grocery store and I said, where are all the fruits and vegetables? And my fellow Marines laughed at me, because we were at the embassy. We made PX runs from Sofia to Athens, Greece. The embassy had a 6x, one of those military trucks. We would send it down to Athens, Greece every couple of months to pick up, Fritos and oranges and avocados and grapes and stuff like that. These people had to wait for the government to produce it, and it's like bread. You couldn't even find bread. You had to go to a special store. It's like most European countries. So some European countries, have a bread store and a cheese store and a meat store and that type of stuff. But there, it was just, cash is cash can. There were no such things as bread stores, cheese stores, meat stores. It was just whatever the government gave you.
It's insane, yeah. And that's one thing I always point to is I point to people like Ivan, who when he could move here, he did. And he was Mr. Bulgaria, and now he's a professional bodybuilder out in Las Vegas making money off his whey proteins. But he is the American dream. Another friend, Prince Blackosh from Kosovo, whose dad had his arms and legs broken because he was a journalist publishing not nice things about the Serbians. Prince moved here. I remember meeting Prince. Prince barely spoke English. Prince is now a physical therapist in Manhattan. And you look at those two, and you have people going, America, we're a third world country in a Gucci belt, right? This is a dystopia. And I'm like, why do these guys crawl over, excuse my French, but drag their balls through broken glass just to get here? And if you talk to them, they've got American flags on their truck. They wake up in the morning and say they say the Pledge of Allegiance, and you're like, what are you doing, man? And they're like, be grateful, you never realize it. And
I agree. I've seen it with my own eyes. Luckily, my sentence was only 1 year.
Yeah.
Those people's sentences was life.
For life. Yeah.
Life in prison, these American wackadoos, American naive idiots, they have no clue what real socialism is. Look at Venezuela. That's just down the road, south of us. It's like Cuba. Cuba is another example of what a socialist, country is. Do you know what the wages are down there for a worker down there? I think it's like
a 7.62 round.
How much?
I said a 7.62 round.
No. That's
the
wages,
wage.
But I think it's like $15 a month, some ridiculous amount of money. I don't know if you heard this, but when the Obama administration opened the
ended the embargo.
Diplomatic ties to Cuba and so on and so forth. A lot of corporations wanted to get their foot in the door. Think about it. You've got a fresh market down there. It's like, you've got people that are probably hungry for anything, and it's a typical China syndrome. If you want to do business in Cuba, you have to open a factory in Cuba, so that way they can, steal your intellectual property and control you and so on and so on and so on. But the companies, they were in the midst of negotiations, and they said, hey, we will pay your employees, minimum wage, which, the companies were thinking American minimum wage, which was like, $5 an hour or whatever for 8 hours of work. Well, how much is 5 times 8? 40?
Yeah.
Okay, times 5. That's $200 a week.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Cuban government told these corporations, no, you will pay those wages to the government. Okay, not directly to the employees. You'll give those wages directly to the government, and then we, the government, will in turn pay your employees. Why? Because they didn't want to give them $200 a month. They wanted to give them $20 a month. Okay, so all that, I'm sure you've heard the term hard cash. These communist countries, they don't have hard cash.
Yeah. So
that was one of their ways, one of the Cuban ways that they were going to get hard cash for their economy. Have these corporations go down there, and instead of paying the employees directly, they had to pay the government, and then the government would keep the employee in its place, down under the jackboot. So, instead of paying him $200 a week, they would pay him $20 a month, like it's a standard.
Yeah.
So I don't know how these people say, like Bernie Sanders says, oh yeah,
bread lines are good. Bread lines are good.
No, but the Cuban system, at least they all get a good education. It's like, but they get nothing else.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that? There's like a meme, and it's all these like Cubans on like a raft made of trash cans and tires. tires, and it's like, look at these poor fools. They had no idea that they're leaving they're leaving free healthcare and free education. Like, and it's like, yeah, how great is it when they're like, I'm gonna float 90 miles. We might go adrift. We might get eaten by sharks, but we're not going home. And it's well, and the only reason that can exist is because, what did Che Guevara say? You cannot have a communist revolution with a free press. So how does it, in the question must arise, why is this happening in America? Well, it's because you have to completely control the narrative. Because if anyone could just look at something like Venezuela and go, look at all the years of prosperity, switch to socialism, and now it's kids eating their cats, and you're like, what happened there? Well, that's shushed up. Stalin would blush at the censorship today. Stalin would be like, Stalin is saluting Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg. They're just like, wow, you guys can shut down, you guys can censor the president if you want, and that's how it starts. And right now,
that's pretty amazing.
The tech censorship is the anaconda, and it's just wrapping around right now, and you're just starting to feel the slight pressure as it's constricting. Wait until it goes for the death squeeze, and then all of a sudden, all you see in the news is Biden is your new premier. Don't question anything. And you're like, oh, shit, okay. And you will get bread on Wednesday. Okay, sure. And it's a bunch of bullshit.
We'll be standing next to empty refrigerators waiting for the produce to arrive.
Screw that. I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. You'll be right there with me, Ed. We're going to go out shooting. We're going to go out shooting. And let's segue that into shooting our way out of problems. And I say our because, between you and I, we have been in the biggest FBI shootout ever. Technically, between you and I, we have. And not that I have any experience, but I had Charlie Duke on, the 10th man to walk on the moon. And I told people that, between he and I, we spent 3 days on the moon, and it's true.
Cool.
Yeah, we've both averaged a day and a half on the moon, but not that, I shoot a gun and it's, I shoot at blank targets. But with your book, I loved it, and I loved it because the entire thing was, you could tell that you went in and you tried to retell the story exactly as how you saw it, with all the, primarily, it's like, you ever seen a music video where they do a really good job at making it look like, even if you watch it sober, you feel drunk. They've got the light, the light sway, the girls, and you're like, oh, you get the vibe.
Yeah.
What I got listening to your book was, I got the vibe of like, this is what the adrenaline dump must be, right? This is what your body is just, it's taking things a millisecond at a time. Because I was listening and I was like, man, I've been listening for like 3 hours, and I was like, I am still within this like 5-minute gap the whole time, just explaining that. And I was like, holy shit. So like that, I know I said I wasn't going to. I have to use the bathroom so bad, and before we dive into the shootout,
okay, go ahead.
I got to use the bathroom.
Run.
Mr. Morales, you got the floor is yours. Tell them where to buy your book.
Thank you.
The book is available on Amazon.
That was me sipping my tea.
And we're back. Sorry about that. I did warn you. I gave you a fair warning.
No, that's okay. I told some risque jokes. You may have to edit those out.
I will edit out nothing. I will be personally insulted if you didn't tell risque jokes. On the topic of socialism, if anyone self-censors themselves on here, I take it as a slap in the face. I want people to come on, just swearing their minds out, telling stories about dicks and titties and fuck that and F this, because the second you start banning that, it's just a slippery slope to wrong thinking. But you and I have already gone on our anti-communist tirade, so I'll try to steer it back towards the book.
Okay.
Can you give the listeners just a very brief summary of what it is that happened, and then we can dive into it?
Okay, real briefly.
Yes.
I was assigned to the bank robbery squad in Miami, Florida. I arrived. I transferred in April of 1985, and I got lucky enough to get assigned to the bank robbery squad because if you know anything about cop work, or especially like more narrow in the FBI, the bank robbery squads, the criminal squads are the squads to be on. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of other important squads that never get any publicity. The counterintelligence squads, the counterterrorism squads. You know, they do probably more important work for national security than a criminal squad. But the criminal squad, you know, those are the guys that make the press. You know, the bank robbery, you know, the kidnap investigations, you know, the fugitive hunters, that type of stuff, you know. But anyway, I was assigned to that squad in April 1985, you know, and as I got to learn the squad and the work in Miami, I found that there was a bank robbery on average in Miami, Florida, like once a day. You know, sometimes, you know, there were 2 and 3 bank robberies a day, which is really kind of tame, because you go to places like New York or Los Angeles, they could have 10 bank robberies a day.
Really?
You know, yeah, because you know Los Angeles is twice as large as Miami. You know, and then you've got all these strip mall banks. You know, the little I don't know what you call them, island banks.
Checks,
you know,
now, yeah.
You know, so but Miami, you know, I mean, it was popping. It was popping. So what I ended up observing is we had a group of three gangs of robbers, and we had one gang we simply called the Hispanic gang. Mm-hmm. Guess why? Because they were Hispanics. Wow. You know, and then we had another gang called the Black Gang, and you know, again, guess
why
what?
Is that?
They were blacks,
yeah. Well,
you know, involved in the robberies. Okay, but then the third gang came up, and that was the Platinmatics gang, and that was the enigma. We didn't know who they were, and we didn't know what they were. Because they were so stealth, I guess. Well, not stealth. I mean, because they left, you know, shot up places and dead bodies in their wake. But they were very careful to conceal their identity. Ski masks, gloves, military clothing, and so on and so forth. The witnesses could never tell us, you know, ma'am, were they black or white or Hispanic? I don't know. Yeah. All I saw was a big gun pointing at my face. Well, yeah, you know, that kind of distracts people. You know, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
You know, but
it really ruin your day. It always ruins my day. I go to the gym. Yeah, I try to talk to a girl, see a friend, and then there's a Glock in my face, and I'm like, you just ruined my whole workout. I got to do a podcast later, and now I'm going to be all flustered.
You know, but people are normal, I guess. They don't like to think you have weapons or firearms pointed at their face. But anyway, so you know, I helped with the Hispanic gang and the Black gang, and then as things turned out, that was like midsummer '85, late summer, early fall '85. The new gang started getting more and more violent. They developed a propensity to shoot indiscriminately from the get-go. We didn't know whether they were amateurs or whether they were just really lethal, cold-blooded individuals, you know. And I think in the beginning they were amateurish, but then as they got better and better at it, they were very thorough and very cold-blooded, you know. So, but to make a long story short, you know, we started developing what very few leads we had on these two individuals. Again, in late fall, winter of 1985, we had no idea who these guys were. We got a big break in early 1986 when after one of the robberies, they dumped their getaway car. And we tied the getaway car to a missing kid in Miami. So I went to interview the parents. His name was Emilio Brielle. And that was a sad situation because when I showed up at the house, the mom, saw the cops and me, and stuff. And she said, she asked me, are you here about my son? Are you here about my son? And I'm thinking, wow, maybe she knows. Maybe she knows her son's involved in the robberies, So, and I said, well, ma'am, I really don't know if we're here about your son, but we're here about your car. So, and then as the story developed, I found out that their son had gone missing, in the previous late summer, and as it turns out, they found his remains, in the Everglades. But the big break came in March of 1986 when another unfortunate soul, Jose Colazo, was out target practicing in the Everglades in the same spot Emilio Briel had disappeared in, and he just happened to run into two white guys, tall, about 6 feet tall, 6'1", white, slender, well built, and heavily armed, and they robbed him, and they ended up shooting him, leaving him for dead. They took his car, his guns, his wallet, and everything else, but miraculously he survived. Incredible luck, when I do my training lectures, I tell people, I say, hey, do you believe in luck? And people say, well, what do you mean luck? I said, well, yeah, do you believe in luck? And I said, well, what do you mean? It's like, I don't believe in those superstitious bullshit luck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I say bullshit?
You can say whatever you would like. Fucking
no. Can I
bullshit.
Say, well, can I say superstitious?
Superstitious bullshit.
Well, we draw the line at superstitious, right?
Draw the line at superstitious. No, you can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want.
I tease people. I say, hey, I get them to commit and say, hey, well, you know what? You don't believe in luck. I say, you know what? And that's fine. I mean, I don't criticize people for not believing in luck. You certainly can't or should not plan your life on luck.
No. And
you shouldn't plan your survival on luck. You shouldn't. It's like, hey, I'm going to go see my aunt in Miami, Florida, and I hope luck gets me down there, on the interstate. No, I mean, you have to have some planning and experience and forethought and so on and so forth. But see, here's the kicker. I always ask these naysayers, okay, you don't believe in luck, or you think it's superstitious mumbo jumbo. I say, well, let me ask you this: if you have a choice between being lucky or unlucky, which would you rather be?
Yeah.
And that they pause and they go, they don't answer. I said, well, yeah, I think I know the answer.
There you go.
You would rather be lucky than unlucky.
Absolutely.
So I guess you do believe in luck,
Yeah.
But anyway, my whole point in this is that in the Bible, Ecclesiastes 9:11, it reads, the race is not always to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor riches to men of knowledge, and so on and so forth. I forget the exact saying now, but it says, but time and chance happen to them all. In other words, that's the Bible's way. That's the Bible's way of saying, hey, you got to have a little luck.
You got to have a little.
Because time and chance can happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, men of skill, men of strong men, fast men, and so on. And as it turned out, Jose Colazo, had a little luck, a little time and chance, because he was shot in the hand, in the shoulder, and then through the face.
Yeah.
Right on the right side of his nose. Mm-hmm. Okay, with a 38. I mean, insane. 999 times out of 1,000, you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you were a dead person at that point, but he survived amazingly. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. But he survived, and he had the will to survive. Yeah. He drug himself and crawled and did whatever he had to do. He went almost a full mile to a highway to flag down a car, and he survived. Amazingly survived, and he became our first witness. He's the one that described two white men, about 6'1", 6 feet tall, thereabouts, 200 pounds, mustaches, fit, so on and so forth. And of course, we had his car, his vehicle. And lo and behold, a week later, there's a robbery in South Miami, and it just so happened, time and chance, a U.S. Customs official was going to the bank to cash a check. By the way, checks were, back in the old days, checks were these paper things that people had, they used to sign, and you used to have to take them into a bank, and you'd give it to the bank,
Nonsense.
and the bank would give you cash.
I don't believe you.
That's superstitious mumbo jumbo.
It is. That's all a legend. That's all a legend. I don't believe a word you're saying. That's not true. There's never been anything other than checks on my phone. This podcast is over. Screw this.
Anyway, it just so happens that this customs officer was going in, and you know what? He said he was just about to get out of his car. He's parked in front of the bank, and he said he sees two men running out of the bank wearing ski masks and gloves and carrying long barrel weapons. He said, well, you know what, maybe I'll wait to cash my check, So he just hunkered down, and he watched them get into a black car. And it just so happened when they backed out of their parking space, the tag was right directly to the customs officer's face. So being a law enforcement officer, he noted the tag, he wrote the tag down, and he confirmed that the tag on that black car was the same tag that belonged to Jose Collazo. So we had a direct link there. So that set up a surveillance. That was in March. I think it was the mid-March. So we knew we had the robbers in South Miami. I mean, we knew that before, but now we had a car, and based on Collazo's description, we knew we had a white pickup truck. So we kind of flooded the zone, with extra patrols down there, and just literally, FBI agents don't run patrols, okay? Police run patrols, but we put the word out. Agents were down there looking for white pickup trucks and black Monte Carlos. And as luck would have it, one day somebody picked up a tag on a white pickup truck. And unfortunately, the results weren't received at the FBI office. As a matter of fact, they were sent to Ben Grogan, one of the agents who ended up dying. The results were on his desk on the following morning after the shootout, and the owner of that vehicle was William Maddox, the owner of the pickup truck, But again, that's just bad luck there. Yeah. But anyway, so we started kind of tightening the noose on the surveillance and the investigation. And then one day, Gordon McNeil, and it was at firearms training with Ben Grogan, April 10th to be exact. And he and Ben were kicking it around. And you know what? This goes to show you about intuitive policing. It's like, hey, you have to have an educated guess. I guess that's an intuition, but it also helps to have, training and experience and kind of like putting two and two together, and Gordon said, hey, you know what, Ben, the last time they hit was 3 weeks. The last time they hit, they only got about $8,000. And he said that's low for their normal score, because before they were getting $40,000 and $50,000 at a pop, So he said, hey, you know what, Ben? He says, I think these guys are due. 3 weeks, 8,000. Times are hard. It's hard to make $8,000 go, the way it used to.
Yeah.
You need to be more frugal. So Ben told Gordon, if Gordon, hey, I'll take any help you can get. He says, good, because I think we need to run a surveillance tomorrow, like from 9 to 1. He said, because statistically speaking, these guys hit on Fridays about 50% of the time. Yep. The other 50% of the time they hit, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But Fridays was definitely a good possibility. So that is how the surveillance started. We received a lot of criticism. So if you guys had a tip, you should have planned better. Or if you guys knew they were going to be there, you should have called the SWAT team. No, we didn't. It was totally a hunch. Yeah. And it was again intuitive policing. That Gordon ended up executing. So anyway, we set up a surveillance. We got 14 agents that were available. I mean, you can't force people to go out surveillance because, what if you have a court date?
Yeah.
A hearing? What if you have a deposition? Or what if you're on vacation? What if you got sick call? Police get sick too, so that type of stuff. You kind of throw it out there and see how many people can join. And that particular morning it was 14 agents. So we met down at the Home Depot on US 1, which was right in the downtown area where all these robberies happened, and we broke up into 4 teams in four different locations. And every one of the locations had been robbed in the past. So that's why we figured, hey, you know what? One location, 136th Street in US 1, had been robbed twice because there were 2 banks at that location. So each bank had been robbed at least once. So we said, hey, we'll set up there. And as luck would have it, time and chance, at about 9:25, 9:30. This is speculation on my part because all the witnesses are dead. Ben Grogan, FBI agent Ben Grogan, FBI agent Jerry Dove, and the 2 bank robbers, Platt Maddox, are all dead.
Yeah.
So all the witnesses are dead.
Yeah.
Okay, but my speculation is that sometime during the course of that morning, a very short course, at about 9:25, 9:30, the black Monte Carlo drove into the parking lot of the 136th Street and US 1 location. Okay, because that's where Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove were stationed for the surveillance. The black Monte Carlo must have driven into the parking lot. Ben and Jerry saw a black car occupied by at least one male and possibly 2, because of the car had tinted windows. So, and I know this is what happened. I mean, the parking lots being what they are, you've got cars, and then you got another car driving by. You can't see the tag. So they saw the car, probably went in, made a U-turn. So they decided to follow that car to see if they could, get a look at the tag.
Yeah.
And they went from 136th Street to 128th Street before they made an announcement over the radio. And at that point in time, they said, attention all units, we're behind a black vehicle, 2-door, Florida tag NTJ 891. And it was the exact same car that Jose Collazo had stolen, so. And man, you know what? I was shocked. I have to be very candid with you. I could not believe that these 2 individuals wouldn't even change the tag on the car, because that car, based on Collazo's robbery, and shot and left for dead and robbery, that car and the tag and the description had been in the news. It was in the print news, and it was on TV news. So it's like they didn't even change the tag. I was just amazed.
Why do you think
so we played catch up. My location was at 128th, and they had just passed our location when they announced. So what followed was a 4-minute surveillance, because based on radio recordings from the start until felony car stop. When it stopped, it's 4 minutes. So I asked officers, I said, hey man, can you plan a car stop in 4 minutes? Yeah, you could, but most of the time, car stops are compliant. A marked unit, turns on the siren, like you and me, we're driving home after the bar, and we're going, oh my God, I've had one drink too many, so we comply, but a lot of people don't, and then that turns into a non-compliant stop, and non-compliant stops all bets are off. I cannot tell you where the car is going to eventually end up stopping. You've seen all the videos on TV, California drivers, they'll drive 100 miles, high speed neighborhoods and so on and so forth. So this didn't quite turn out to be a California, car chase. Thank God for that. That's what I was worried about. I was worried that if they got back on US 1, because they went from US 1 into the side streets, which is great. Okay, because there's a lot of narrow streets and so on, and they ended up making they went around in a circle going back to US 1, and I was afraid they were going to go back to US 1, and then we would have a bumper car race, so, but miraculously they didn't go to US 1. They went south on 82nd Avenue, and at that point Ben Grogan called all units melody cars down. So then we knew that it was going to be a hot stop. Everybody was ready. Everybody had their guns, prepared, and so on and so forth. And as luck would have it, it turned into a non-compliant stop because they did not stop. As soon as they heard the siren and they saw the flashing light behind them, they started speeding up. And that ended up being, we played bumper cars for about, 10 seconds at the most. It was 2 blocks. It was a distance of about 200 yards maximum. And we were, I tell people, I said, hey, we were as determined to stop them as they were determined to escape. It's an immovable object meets irresistible force. It's like, and we ended up pinning them, into a driveway, and then again, being the good guys, we. I remember Gordon McNeil, I had crashed up against the wall and I was kind of out of it for a few seconds. I wasn't focused on the actual car stuff because I was focused on a brick wall, a cement wall that we crashed up against. Yeah. So I was slightly distracted, by trying not to get my head smashed into a windshield, so.
Little thing.
But when they finally stopped, we gave them the option, Gordon and Ben Grogan yelled out, FBI, police, put your hands up. And their response was gunfire. Yeah. Okay, so it was on at that point, it was like, and it was a jumble of cars. It was really, I was across the street. I was about 50 yards away. And when I finally got out of the car and I started running across the street to assist, I truly did not know where the subjects were because there was like a whole bunch of cars that had seemed to have piled up at one point, and I was as I'm running, I'm trying to figure out where's the threat, and I'm looking at Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove aiming slightly to the north, and I'm looking at Gordon McNeil, who's on the left side of the scene, aiming slightly to the east. So I figured, okay, one's pointing north, one's pointing east. So wherever those 2 lines intersect, that's probably where the bad guys are. Yeah. So I had a general idea in this big pile of cars where the subjects might be. So I figured, okay. And as I'm running across the street, I was going to reinforce Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove because that was the closest point of cover. It wasn't anything, heroic. It was more like a chicken call. Yeah. Where's the nearest point of cover, man? I got to get to it. But as I'm running, I see John Hanlon, my partner. He was running next to me. We were about 6 feet apart. He's running to Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove's position. And I'm scanning left and right. And I said, okay, if I go with Ben and Jerry, that'll be 4 agents there. And Gordon McNeil is off to the left of the scene by himself. That's the weak point in the line. So halfway across the street, I veered to the left and I went in around McNeil's car, and I went around to Gordon McNeil's left side to reinforce him. And I had a shotgun in my hand when I was doing that, and by that time it was full on. It was like, bullets for gunfire was going like a firing range. It's like shots were being fired several shots per second. Good guys, bad guys, everybody was shooting. And again, I had no real clear view of where the subjects were. And I know it sounds like a mamby-pamby excuse, but but because you know what? Though, I'm running from the sun. From sunlight into a shade, into a covered shady area. Yeah. Okay. And amazingly, for smokeless powder, it does create smoke. So smoke was kind of like up in the air. There was so many rounds fired that smoke was up in the air, and it was underneath. It was being, prevented from dissipating by the trees over the scene. And then at the same time, when the cars came to a screeching halt, there's a dirt area between the sidewalk and the street, and the dirt, it was just bizarre. I was like thinking, where the heck did all this dirt and gun smoke come from? And that was from the actual, crashing and the spinning of wheels and stuff, So I said, this is weird, it's like we're in a beautiful sunny day in South Florida, and then there's smoke in the air and there's dust in the air, and I'm thinking, and I'm looking at the shade, and I'm thinking, where the hell are these guys? And as I ran around the corner of the car, I almost got to the left of Gordon McNeil, and when I took, it's hard to describe, I thought I slipped or hit something because I was running forward 1 second. I was looking directly at the spot next to Gordon McNeil that I was going towards. And the next, there's like snapping your fingers, like that. I'm looking up at the sky, at the blue sky, and I'm thinking, what the hell happened?
Why am I here now?
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, at that point in time, I noticed that there was a change in my physique or my physical sensibilities. I don't know how to describe it.
You could almost say like your balance, like your layout, right? You could. I know what you're getting to. Yeah.
It was. There was no pain, and I did start experiencing, some fight or flight. My heart rate was up, my vision was keen, and my blood pressure was up. I started losing a little bit of my hearing because I could clearly hear gunshots, but they weren't as loud as they should have been. So my hearing was already kind of diminishing, but I could tell clearly, the difference between a 38, a 9mm, and then whatever the subjects were firing. I could distinctly tell you who was shooting what. The pistols were being fired by the SWAT agents, Ben Brogan and Jerry Dove. Gordon McNeil was firing the revolver, and then the bad guys were firing their cannon, because it sounded like a cannon to me. But again, I was like stunned when I'm on my back, and I'm thinking, and I was also angry. I said, "You are stupid. You are," and I didn't put it in the book, but I actually said to myself, "You're a stupid son of a bitch." I said, how can you? I thought I ran into the back of Gordon McNeil's car. Okay. And I'm thinking, I said, I shouldn't have cut it so close. I should have cut it a foot wider. Okay. But it didn't add up. When I look at it with 20/20 hindsight, it doesn't add up, because if I'd have hit Gordon McNeil's car, I would have been about 15 feet behind Gordon McNeil instead of right next to him. So my mind was trying to fill in a gap, figure out the puzzle. And I said, you ran into the back of Gordon McNeil's car. I said, you're letting Gordon McNeil, stand up there by himself, getting shot at, firing, and you are so stupid that you ran into the back of his car. Get up and help him. Okay, and I'm pushing with my left arm. I've got the shotgun in my right arm, and I'm pushing with my left arm like this to push myself up. And that's what's so weird, because, in our youth, you could sit up easy. When we were young and as felt, I could sit up and from, laying down sideways, whatever, upside down, whatever, I could sit up and get up, without even using my hands, But here I was, and I was trying to use my arm to push myself up, because it was just weird. Something was off with me physically. Okay. And I have to laugh, there was this horrendous ringing in my ears, and I'm thinking, wow, it just like came on all of a sudden, and it was like loud, it sounded like loud ringing, what do they call it? Tinnitus?
Tinnitus. Yeah.
Something, it was like that, but it was like a siren going off in my ears, like,
Yeah.
And I found out later that I had my bell rung, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I just physically, mentally I was aware. I think I was still aware, or fairly aware, but physically I was like, something was off, and I really couldn't tell, as like my ears were ringing, and everything felt like I was like slow motion, like everything was. I hate to use the word, but I use it anyway. It felt like everything was more retarded, more like
slow mo, moving through mud or molasses, right?
Yeah, moving through molasses and stuff like that, So, but I couldn't put two and two together, and the situation kept going on. Gordon fired his shots. He was wounded at that point. He wounded the subjects. Ben Gorgon, Jerry Dove, and John Hanlon were firing from the rear of the getaway of the bad guy, the robbery car, the stolen car. So gunfire was still going on, and then Gordon McNeil was shot. He came back up with his revolver, fired 2 more shots, ran out of ammo, and then retreated to the back of his car to reload because he had been shot in the right hand, the gun hand. So he felt he needed to get a little bit more cover between him and the subject so that he knew he was going to have a hard time reloading, with one hand, because his strong hand his right hand had been severely damaged. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what's going on, and I finally got mad at myself, because I'm looking for a threat. I'm still focusing on the threat. I had no idea what was going on. Physically, I had no idea what was going on. Tactically, I knew there was still bad guys out there. I was looking left and right, scanning and this and that. So I had to force myself to stop scanning and look at my left side to figure out why the hell isn't it working? Yeah. So when I looked down at my left side, it was a shock of shocks. I was like, what in the world? I couldn't believe it. When I saw. Honestly, I didn't know if it was attached to me, but it looked like roadkill. It looked like a rabbit had been crushed by a semi and it just exploded out. I said, "What the hell is that?" I said, "That can't be my arm. There's no way." But I'm thinking, well, I'm laying next to it. It's got to be something there. So I had to force myself to lay the shotgun across my chest, muzzle pointing, at my feet, at a 45-degree angle. Took my right hand and I reached over and I picked up, I eventually identified a hand attached to something there, but it was incredible because the hand had been swollen like to twice its size. The fingers were like huge sausage fingers. They were just swollen, like just full of blood and stuff, and I'm thinking, this is weird. It looked like a gigantic hand, like a giant's hand, it was all puffed up. I said, that can't be my hand, so I actually reached up and I grabbed the hand and I pulled it up in front of my face like this. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's attached to me.
Oh, whose is this? Get it off me.
Really?
Yeah.
I said, oh my God, it's attached to me. It's my arm. I said, holy shit. I said, I've been shot. That was the first time. It was like a minute after I was shot that I realized I'd been shot. Yeah. And I'm shaking my hand like this just to be sure. It's still attached on this side by shreds of flesh. The bones are just toast. There was nothing. There was only the flesh on the ulnar side of the arm that was connecting my arm, and I shook it like this, and everything was just flapping around. I said, "Oh!" And you know what I did? It was kind of funny now, but I went like this. I threw the arm back down on the ground. It fell on the ground. Yeah, and I said, "Okay."
Deal with that later.
I actually thought this. They call this intrusive thoughts. I actually thought this. I said, "Hey, they're going to have to amputate your arm." Grabbed the shotgun, start focusing, stuck it underneath my armpit like this, and I had it at a 45-degree angle like this, and I kept on scanning.
Deal with it later.
Because the shooting is still going on. I said, hey, I'm alive. I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm injured, and there are still people out there trying to kill me.
Yeah.
So the important part is not to be killed.
Throw it away. Made a note. I'll deal with that later. I'll call my physician. I'll make an appointment. But
I'll call somebody later.
Yes, I'll make a note. Have my wife make a note.
I continued to scan, and it seems like 30 seconds. Excuse me, I'm all choked up from emotions. No, actually, let me take a sip of my drink.
Me and Miss Morales drinking Everclear.
Okay. It seems like 30 seconds or longer, but in reality, it probably was less.
Yeah.
Okay. As I'm scanning left and right, I see some movement. Every time I scan to the right, I saw movement to the left, and I would come back, and I'm looking for it, and then I said, well, and this happened about 2 or 3 times. And finally, I said, God damn it, what the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell's going on here? I said, I'm already having a bad day,
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm going to stop scanning, and I'm going to look forward, hold my head perfectly still, but I'm going to move, only move my eyes to the left to see what I can see. And when I did that, I noticed what it was. I saw something spraying from. It appeared to be coming from my head, and I couldn't tell. It was just like, and I think, what? And I said, holy shit. It was red. And when I stopped to look at it, and I didn't move, and I'm looking up like this to the left side, and I saw it was blood. I figured out it was arterial bleeding. Yeah. Every time my heart beat, this thing would just. And that's what the motion was, and I'm thinking, I said, Jesus Christ, I'm having a bad day. I said, I'm shot in the head. So again, I laid the shotgun across my chest, and I took my good hand, and I put my 4 fingers like this, and I actually went up to my left side of my head, expecting to feel mush up there, and I went like this. I stuck my fingers in there, expecting to feel mush on the side of my head, and all I could feel was my skull, and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, And I put my hand up there, it was blood. And, as luck would have it, when I'm doing this, checking my wound, I had flipped or knocked the flap of skin that was, over the wound. I flapped it over the artery, and that prevented it from spraying blood. It didn't stop the bleeding, but it kind of slowed it down. So inadvertently, I was like doing this. And it kind of stopped the bleeding. And I said, okay, fine.
Dr. Morales.
My head's intact. Yeah. I said, so it couldn't have penetrated too deep. So grabbed the shotgun and continued to scan. This event went on so long that I could tell that the gunfire that I was hearing was like distant. But I could tell from what direction it was coming. Initially, it was coming from directly in front of me, and then it moved off to my right, and then it moved farther to the right, and then it moved farther to the right. So I'm thinking, okay, whatever's happening is starting to circle around in that direction. So I said, I can't see crap here. Yeah. So I started moving myself. I used my heels and my shoulder blades to crawl from the position that I had fallen in to crawl my way around the back of Gordon McNeil's car to see what was going on the other side, because obviously I don't think I was in any condition to stand up, and I wouldn't want to stand up either because there's still a lot of gunfire going on. So that college training paid off.
Yeah. Look, Mom, I didn't stand up in the bullets. Yeah.
So when I went around the back of the car, that was a shock, because that's when I saw Gordon McNeil on the street. He was down, and then when I went around the car, I could see what ended up being Jerry Dove and Ben Grogan, and I could see a third body on the other side of the car, which I assumed to be John Hanlon. So when I saw that, I saw a pair of legs that was running, around the bodies, and I'm thinking, well, okay, I have Gordon McNeil, I have Ben Grogan, Jerry Dove, and John Hanlon. I said, that doesn't leave too many other guys. I said, so that person running around the scene's got to be a bad guy.
Can't be
so
our friend.
On my side, on my back, with one hand, I aimed the shotgun at the feet. I could only see from the knees down from underneath the car, and I'm thinking, okay, shoot this bastard. And I went into one of those situations, shoot, don't shoot, shoot, don't shoot. And part of me said, hey, don't shoot, because if you miss, your pellets will end up hitting Ben Grogan, Jerry Dove, or maybe John Hanlon, or all three. the other part of me says, "Shoot the bastard!" So,
Yeah.
and you know what though, under stress and things like that, to this day, I don't remember making that shot. All these years later, I mean, and the crime scene shows that I fired 5 shotgun rounds, but I only remember firing 4. Okay, so that's called traumatic amnesia. You're in a traumatic situation. You do something that you may or may not remember. So, but that was a shot that I didn't make, even though I made it. So, and I said, well, I didn't shoot the guy, so I kept crawling around to a point where eventually I was all the way around McNeil's car. And I put my back up against the bumper and I peeked around to the left like this to look to see what was going on at Ben Grogan's car. And you know what? Time distortion. I thought it took me like 2 seconds, 10 seconds at the most to crawl on my back, scoot up, sit up, and put my back up against the bumper of the car with my shotgun in my right hand and turn around and kind of like do this. But in that 2 or 3 seconds that my perception said it took me, the 2 bad guys had somehow miraculously gotten inside the car. So that made me think, okay, it wasn't 2 seconds. It was probably more like 20 seconds that it took me to maneuver. That's just, time and distance, distortion, so. And when I saw the subjects in the car, they were, the driver was kind of leaning over the steering column like this, and he was obviously looking at the steering column, and the passenger was leaning towards the steering column in this fashion, looking at the steering column. So it became immediately obvious to me that they were either trying to insert the key, start the car, or do something else, okay? And I'm thinking, these bastards are trying to get escape. And the only avenue of escape is to back the car up. And if they back the car up, they would run over at least 2 FBI agents, maybe 3, okay? Now, I learned after the fact that both of these individuals that were right-handed, okay, and both of their right arms had been shattered, destroyed. Okay, that's probably why they were like looking over the steering column, trying to figure out, hey, how do I manipulate the key, or how do I manipulate the the shifter, and same thing with the passenger. Okay, his right arm was toast, and he had been shot in the head. He was probably more seriously injured than his partner. But my immediate thought was to prevent them from moving the car, because, like I said, if they moved the car, if they backed the car up, they would run over at least 2 agents, maybe 3. So then I figured, okay, I've got the heavy weapon, I've got the shotgun, okay, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to use the shotgun. I want to put as many rounds of shotgun ammo into the compartment of that car, but how am I going to fire the shotgun with only one hand? I could do it, but it would be totally inaccurate shots, So I said, okay. So as I'm leaning over to my left, I said, oh, you know what? I saw the lip of the bumper. I'm thinking, hey, you know what? That'll be a perfect little perch, to put the shotgun, the fore end of the shotgun on there. Yeah. So, and firearms instructors tell you, hey, when you shoot, if you see my hands, okay, like this, when you shoot, you bring the weapon up to eye level. You don't bring your head down to the weapon. Okay. So that's a pretty hard lesson. It's a steadfast lesson, but in my case, the bumper was below my head. Okay. In other words, my head's up here. The bumper was down here. So I had to put the shotgun on the bumper. I had to move my head down. Yeah. Totally contrary to training. I had to move my head down to the sights instead of bringing the weapon up. So it worked. We'll make an exception.
Little improv, yeah. Except when you're in a shootout in Miami. That's the asterisk.
So what ended up happening was I used it to good effect. It was perfect. I didn't have to worry about balancing the weapon with one hand. I had the front bumper, the bumper there, and I had the shotgun up like this. And I found the sights, found this target, and I squeezed the first round. And I was so pissed at myself because I ended up missing. I mean, I could see the hit. And when the weapon recoiled like this, it was perfectly natural. I just kept recoiling back to the weapon, and I sat right back in a sitting position with my back up against the bumper of the car, had the shotgun by the pistol grip up here. So I said, you know what, just let it slide. Let it slide, hit the buttstock, hit the ground. I grabbed pinched my legs together, my thighs together, secured the weapon, reached up, grabbed the forend, racked it, went back down to the pistol grip, picked it up, turned back around. And I fired 4 rounds in that fashion, And I thought that the second round that I fired at the car had just totally plastered the driver. Okay, it was perfectly into into the side door windshield of the car, and it was a beautiful thing. He was sitting like this, putzing around with the steering column, and the next thing you see is him do this.
Yeah.
Arms flying up, it's like slow motion, it's like
doing the wave.
I don't mind saying it was a beautiful thing.
Hell yeah, no, absolutely. You're like, all right, I just blew his head off. You're like, all right.
And you know what? In my mind, he was totally and completely dead. So I was like, wow, now I have to worry about the passenger. Yep. So I focused my last 2 shots at the passenger, and when he saw his partner kind of fly into his lap, he said, well, shit, someone's shooting at us. He had been sitting upright in the car, and when I went back to look for him, all I could see was like this part of his head, like this from the windshield. So I'm figuring, okay, how the heck am I going to shoot him in the head, through the windshield at a 45-degree angle and at a 45-degree angle with the glass up like this, So I kind of played Kentucky windage, and I aimed at the spot in the windshield where I thought it would be the most likely place that if the rounds penetrated and did ricochet slightly, they would ricochet slightly to the left, So in the end, none of those pellets ended up hitting the passenger, but it certainly made him duck his head. Though.
Yeah. And you said in your book, you said it blew out all the glass, and then the glass hit him. So you got some, but kind of like horseshoes and hand grenades, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. But at that point in time, I thought the gunfight was over. I was out of ammo. I laid the shotgun next to my position, and then I put my back up against the car again, and I looked over to my right, and this was the only time I remember saying anything. It's when I looked at the agents across the street, and I actually took my good arm, and I said, come on over. It's okay, come on over. And they yelled back at me saying, stay down. And I think, they don't know the gunfight's over, So, and I looked north, and then I looked south, and they had set up a perimeter, and it was like, holy cow, there must have been, 20, north and south, there must have been 20 fire engines and ambulances waiting, and to come in, and then God knows how many police cars, because they were just lined up, they was like, but nobody knew who was where, what was what, so, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we are going to die.
Yeah.
It's good.
We're fucked. It's over, right? Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking, and that's when psychologically, physically, I had been getting weaker and weaker because I forgot to mention when I was moving on my back from where I was shot around McNeil's car, I was it was getting darker and darker. It was getting harder and harder for me to see.
And for everyone listening, not the light getting darker, your vision was getting darker and darker. You said the blackness, just
right. My internal vision, was getting darker and darker because I could tell that I was passing out. Okay, that's like if anybody has ever fainted, you start going like everything gets kind of dark, and then
Yeah.
You hope you don't land on something sharp,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but that's what was happening, and I could tell it was happening. But so I had to keep shaking my head, hard to stay awake. It's like, what the heck,
Yeah.
So when I saw that, and I knew that, and I knew we were bleeding out, it's like, oh my God! I said, we are screwed. We are totally screwed.
Yeah.
Something happened. Psychologically, because physically I knew I was weaker and weaker, but psychologically, people talk about the 5 stages of death.
Yeah.
You get denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance, depression. Depression comes first, but then acceptance comes last. My stages of 5 stages of death were, one girlfriend meets the second girlfriend, and then you're in trouble. That type of. I'm joking. if you want to flirt with death, get 2 girlfriends in the same room.
Ed Mireles, a player. But
I mean, back to seriousness. Okay, you go through acceptance, bargaining, and I went through all those stations except depression.
Yeah.
Because it was too short. I didn't have
didn't have the time. It's just
there really wasn't time. It was seconds. So, and I bargained. I asked God. I said, God, if you help me and if you save me, I'll start going to church once a month, or it's twice a year or something.
Tough bargain. You're bleeding out, and you're like, I'll do you once a month, and he's like, not good enough, Ed. Not good enough. Bullets keep flying. He has the bargaining chips.
But it's like, hey, you really do. It's like, hey, you know what? But
yeah.
While all of this is going on, I have this underlying volcano of anger.
Yes.
And just pure violent,
just primitive rage.
Because I'm thinking, what, these sons of bitches, if I am going to die, I said, I am going to make sure they are dead too,
You said you're going to bring them to hell personally.
It was a combination of like, when I finally, the stages of death, when I finally reached acceptance, the volcano was just about to erupt. Okay, it was perfect timing, on 2 levels. When I reached acceptance, and I say this for the benefit of the audience, is like, it was liberating.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. It was when I said, hey, you know what? I am going to die. Today is the day I die. I accepted that. And I lost all fear.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, what else can happen to you?
Yeah.
Death is the ultimate,
Yeah.
So I accepted death.
I was going to say, what we haven't touched on yet for everyone listening is that at this point, Platt Maddox had killed 2 agents. We haven't gone over that, but that's where this rage is. They killed my friends.
Right, I forgot to mention that, because when Ben, Jerry, and John were behind the car, I thought all 3 of them were dead. Okay, and as luck would have it, thankfully John Hanlon survived back there. So I said, well, you know what? They killed my friends, and for all intents and purposes, they've killed me.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've accepted death.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the Christian thing, and I'm going to reach out and touch him with the muzzle of my gun.
Yeah. I'm going to do what God would want, and I'm going to bring him to hell personally. I laughed in your book when you said that. You're like,
I actually I rolled over on my right side, used my right hand to push up, and I got on my knees. And then once I was on my knees, I used my right hand on the trunk of the car like this. And I drew my revolver, and I was still crouched. I was still thinking tactics. I wasn't standing up straight like a board, like a silhouette target. I was still hunched down, and I brought my revolver up, and I peeked around to the left, and the subjects were still there in the car. And I said, okay. okay, I got you. And they weren't aiming things at me. They weren't shooting at me, which, that's when I left cover. I left, the position of cover. I took 2 steps forward. I set myself up in the position, where my right foot was forward, my left foot was slightly back, brought the weapon up to eyesight, the revolver, and fired 1 shot at the driver. And I knew right away that the shot missed him because it went behind his neck and hit the seat. I could actually see the seat, the material in the seat puff up like that. And I'm thinking, shit, man, you're a shitty shot, man. So I took 2 steps forward, additional steps forward, set my position, and then fired at the driver's head. And I hit him on the forehead right here, on the right side of the forehead. But I didn't know at the time, but because he was kind of like laying like this, looking towards me like this, and I hit him right in the forehead. But the round didn't penetrate his skull, and it just went underneath the skin, and it went. He kind of basically shot him in the temple, like he shot me. The round hit me in the temple area. So took 2 steps forward, and I thought the driver was dead because from the headshot. I took 2 more steps forward, and I started focusing on the driver because that's the one that I was worried about that was still, alive and potentially dangerous, So 2 steps forward, I shot into his chest area. 2 steps forward again, shot into his chest area, and took an additional 2 steps forward, set my position, and shot the passenger again in the chest area. As it turns out, my rounds hit him in the face and not necessarily the chest area. One of them hit him in the neck, and then 2 of them hit him in the face. I was right at the door at that point in time. I had 1 round left over, so I just kind of leaned down and I shot the driver flat. Shot him in the chest. And as it turns out, that round, because he was laying down, it went up at an angle. It went from his center of the chest up and into his neck area and hit him in the spinal cord and paralyzed him at that point in time. And that is pretty much it, in a nutshell, the shooting. After that, the whole world came in to the scene, Agent Reisner and Agent Laurenti came in to assist me as I fired my last shot. They came up and they said, "Hey, Ed, it's over. Put your gun away. Put your gun away. It's over." Yeah. And I, being a good, well-trained agent, I took my gun and I hosted it.
Oh yeah. You said you clipped it. Yeah.
And I even snapped the holster.
like a poster boy. Like a poster boy.
You do it 100,000 times. You did it one more time. So, and then I stepped back and then I collapsed. And then the whole world was there. Ambulances, officers, and everything. Yeah. So after that, it just became a blur. And I felt from the time I was wounded until the end of the shootout, I felt absolutely no pain. Yeah. 0 pain. Okay. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know I'd been shot because, it's a physiological defense that the human body has, and about 20 or 30 seconds after the shootout ended and the adrenaline, was used up. Agony. Yeah, that's absolute agony. And then I was grabbing paramedics by the ankles, going, "Give me a shot!"
Give me a shot. Well, yeah, that's what you said. Is you were like you couldn't even hear it firing because just the adrenaline. Talking about like this primitive bloodlust. Like as the bullet hits him, you're like, "Fuck yeah!" Yeah. But then when it's over, all of a sudden your body is like, "All right, Ed, hey, great job, you did it." Now you're hurting, and you're like,
now you got to pay the bill.
Yeah, exactly. It's the morning after, and now the tab is due, but that's how you described it. Yeah, you'd lost a lot of blood. You said above anything, you were thirsty, right? Makes sense. And they gave you morphine, but you're like, even that didn't entirely do it.
No, it didn't. Not at all. I mean, it wasn't until I got to the hospital. They've got the good stuff in the hospitals. So. And I tell you what, though, once I was in the hospital, I was okay. I felt some pain, but nothing compared to what I felt on the street. I mean, like I said, they mainlined it into my system. It's like, hey, stuff. It's okay.
The good stuff. Yeah. Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd starts playing, right? That's what you said. You're like, I also started to realize just how hot the road was. You're like, this isn't a comfy place to sit. You're like, this is burning, right? But it all comes. It all comes back and
crashing in. It all comes crashing in. Yeah.
I thought it was funny though how the doctor, the orthopedic, originally refused to operate because he thought you were the criminal, and he was like, I'm not helping that guy, which is awesome. I loved it. I was just like, hell yeah,
that was funny. Yeah, that was funny.
And then Reagan calls, right?
Right. You know what? I was oblivious. I mean, I was out of the loop on that. But my wife was in the emergency room running around, Liz. And they said, Liz, come here. She said, what? She said, the president's on the line. And she goes, oh my gosh. She said, just tell him I'm sorry. I can't take this right now.
I'm busy. I'll call him back. Ronnie, I'll call you right back. But
well, he did have me up to the White House.
Yeah. He said you went in, and he looked at you and was like, "I heard you boys had a day." Just not. That's why I wanted to ask. I know you only met him for a minute, but
that was pretty cool though.
Reagan, a cool guy.
Yeah, he was cool. You know what? He's taller than that. He was deceivingly tall. He was about because I'm 6 feet tall, and I had to look up at him, by at least an inch or two.
Well, as a munchkin, I hate you all tall men equally. So don't worry, I don't discriminate.
He was I'm tall, I'm thick and tall, but he was strapping tall. Yeah. He was like a Western cowboy tall. Like real slender.
Literally an actor that did Western cowboys. So
yeah, exactly. And he was very impressive man, I mean, just looking, and he was very cool, calm, collected,
Hell yeah. And I want to, and don't let me, I know I've kept you on for 90 minutes, and don't let me keep you, but I have, I was going to say, but then they went on to investigate, and they were, in true bureaucratic bullshit, they were like, well, Mr. Mireles, you might have used excessive force. And you were like, and they were like, you shot these two unarmed men. And it was like, oh, poor Platin Maddox, right? Ed comes up with bloodlust one day and just decides to kill these two innocent men.
Yeah, you know what? I thought that was pretty ironic.
That was some bullshit.
Oh, give me a break, please.
That was some bullshit, yeah.
But you know what? Luckily, all of that happened in the background. I mean, I never knew about it until I was notified. It's like, hey, by the way, you were under investigation. I said, really? For what? Maybe excessive force, it's like
that's some bullshit. That is some bullshit. Does that not boil your blood? Like,
yeah, that's what I say. It's like, take that case to court. See what happens.
Yeah, right. I mean, on one hand, I guess I can see like maybe that's a sign of like how far we've come as a society, that like everything gets investigated for excessive, which is probably a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it leads to a police state. But like, I can see from your standpoint where it's just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, really. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Cool.
That was awesome, Mr. Mireles.
I'd like to come back and we can discuss other issues if you'd like.
Please do. Yeah, I know. I just kept. Most episodes are an hour. I know you and I just went off for an hour and a half. So let's wrap this one up, because for me, around 90 minutes, my brain starts to lose the ability to focus, and I realize how much that makes me sound like a wimp. As you're just finishing this story about bleeding out, here I am, and I'm like, well, I start to get tired after 90 minutes. I need some coffee and crackers. And you're like, there I was, bleeding out with arterial shit flying out of my forehead, landing headshots, and then the president calls me, and I'm like, hey, Ed, I gotta go to the bathroom. But, hey, we're both heroes in our own sense, right? Yeah.
That's funny.
But,
that's funny.
I would love to have you back on. I'll shoot you an email. And
sure.
For everyone listening, it really is. It's FBI Miami Firefight, 5 Minutes That Changed the Bureau by Edmundo and Elizabeth Mireles. It's on Kindle. It's not on Audible, which I'm very upset about. But it's, like I said, it is. I loved it because even with the amount of detail that Ed just went into, there's even more in the book. And there's just little things. I mean, the killing of Jerry and Ben, but every little thing you just like the slideshow of images, and then you go into like the psychology of what you're seeing. It really is, like I said, it's just like those music videos where you can the first person drunk. I felt like I was like, okay, I get it, right? Because if you just watch a movie like me, you're like, yeah, chomping on your cigar, like, with an M60. But no, in your mind, it really is. You're just like, where the hell am I? Why am I looking at dirt? And it's just everything slows down. But it also, I think, gives a lot of, I guess, concrete support to just like what the fog of war is. You're like, doesn't matter what your plan is. It all goes out the window, right? And it's just the cracking bullets, but we can wrap this one up, and I'll have you on a second
before
time.
You do, one last thing. If people want an autographed copy of the book, they should go to my website, www.edmureles.com, and order from there if they want an autographed copy. Otherwise, Kindle works,
Kindle, I will put that in the description and the top link in the bio. It's about a 5-hour read. Just get it. Mr. Mireles doesn't know it yet, but he's going to put it on Audible, and he's going to narrate it himself. Really?
Yeah, we are.
Good. Please,
I need to find a voice actor.
Read it. It is. There are a lot of great narrators. I listen to a ton of audiobooks. My library is like 1,100 titles, so I'm not bullshitting you. There are a lot of great narrators out there. There is nothing better than when the author reads the book themselves, because it doesn't matter what their voice is. It doesn't matter if it doesn't fit. It is, to me, there is a specific connection that is just... So for whatever it's worth, you should narrate it. But it's your book. Do what you want. But I think it would be great. You have a great voice. It's good. It'd be one thing if you had my voice and you're like, and there I was with my gun and I was shooting at the bad guys. No, you've got a good grizzled retired FBI voice, so it'll work. But yeah, autographed copy will be. You can get it from his website, and Ed will fill it out personally for all you ladies that want his autograph. Just make sure send some money with lipstick on it. Just kiss it, and he'll autograph it for you personally. He's a ladies' man. He's tall, thick, sexy man, but. Mr. Mireles, thank you, sir. Your book on Kindle, online, get it, print, Kindle, whatever, soon Audible. And until next time, you have a good one. Thank you, Mr. Mireles. You have a good day, sir, all right?
Thank you.
All right, my man, take care. God bless America. God bless everybody. Stay safe.